What's going on, soccer fans? Welcome to the Soccer Brothers Podcast. This is episode number 80. I'm your host, Sahil, and I'm excited to talk to you guys today about yesterday's USMNT World Cup qualifier at Honduras. We managed to get a point on the road. I'm excited to break it down, even though I wasn't that excited during most of the game. If you want to hear my review of the Costa Rica match at home that happened before this match, you can listen to that one. I did preview the Honduras match toward the end of that episode. So if you want to know what I was thinking going into this game, you can get a better look by listening to that podcast first. That's episode number 79. But going into this game, I was pretty confident that we would have a better approach. We would be a little bit less passive, a little bit more aggressive than we were against Costa Rica. But I was definitely disappointed when I saw that lineup released, that it was another flat 4-4-2 with Bradley and Acosta in the midfield, which sometimes works against lower level opposition, but we know it has its tendency to not work as it did against Costa Rica. I saw Pulisic not in a playmaking role, stuck out wide again, which I was disappointed with. And I was also kind of disappointed to not see Bobby Wood starting. And maybe I was wrong about that, because Bobby Wood did end up snatching that late goal, which I'll talk about in just a second. But another thing that I had my concern about was Jeff Cameron not starting. I know Jeff Cameron did make some really poor errors, particularly leading up to that second Costa Rican goal in the previous World Cup qualifier. But I think that overall he's a better center back than Omar Gonzalez. He has a lot more to offer passing-wise. And he just is less prone to mistakes normally. So I those were my thoughts kind of going into the game. And I will talk about the game as a whole, but first I'm going to break down each goal as I normally do. So in the 27th minute, Costa Rica got their goal. Kyoto scored. Omar Gonzalez made a mistake by not getting the right angle on a through ball to Kyoto. I'm not really sure if it was the angle or if he didn't get there fast enough. Either way, the Dynamo man hits the right post and bangs it in the 27th minute, and we are looking in shambles. Everyone's panicking, rightfully so. Not a good time. But finally, after a long time, like 60 minutes, that is 60 minutes. I was just doubting my math for a second. 60 minutes later, in the 84th minute, Acosta takes a free kick, and it's stalked out by Luis Lopez, the Honduran keeper, and it almost goes out for a corner, but Matt Beasler is there to swing the ball back into Jordan Morris, who heads it back to Bobby Wood. Bobby Wood settles it and fires it into the net, and it's tied up going into the end of the game. So definitely great composure by Bobby Wood. Great free kick by Acosta, and Beasler, good effort to go out there and get it, and Morris, good at it. I mean, everyone who was involved, all four of those U.S. names that were involved, definitely did really well to create that goal. It was one of the few times that I really liked what was going on end product-wise for the U.S. tonight. So, those were the goals. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about how I felt about this game in a general sense, some of the tactics, and my general overview of how the first half and the second half went. So right away, you saw a fullback issue, right when the game picked up. Graham Zusi and DeMarcus Beasley were just absolutely being destroyed by the two Houston Dynamo wingers, Elise and Kyoto. It was kind of comical at times. I mean, Zusi really added nothing to the game. He was getting beaten on the ball. He was getting beaten off the ball. Going forward, he added nothing. Graham Zusi, and I've said this before, I really don't think should be our best option at right back. I don't see what he does there that other players wouldn't. Like, he's just not that good. I think there are a few times throughout games, and my brother and I kind of got into a back and forth about this on Twitter, where I do think he does deal with balls in certain times like pretty well, because he has kind of some technical ability to get balls out for throw-ins instead of corners and deal well in tight situations. But the problem is that his speed and positioning are just not like up to snuff with some of the other players like DeAndre Yedlin. And I know he's not meant to be starting over DeAndre Yedlin. DeAndre Yedlin's hurt, of course, but still, I think that we should find something else. And it might be the three in the back that we saw later in the game, but I'll get to that later. And on the other side, DeMarcus Beasley. Beasley, he made some decent plays. In the 9th minute, he got beaten by Elise, but Acosta was there to be the scapegoat for him. There were a couple other times where, Beasley made mistakes, but I also thought Beasley made a few more redeemable plays than Graham Zusi. I think that Zusi was probably one of the worst players that we had on the pitch, but I did see some. I think there was one situation where Beasley, did really well to get an aerial ball away from Elise on that right hand side, out for a corner, and it was just a very hard angle, and it was a ballsy header to clear it out. So that was fine, but I mean, I think we all know that Beasley, isn't the same player that he used to be, and no one's really arguing that he is, and he's lost his step. But see, I think like when you see the pace of Elise and Kyoto on that sheet, when you watch the film, I think you got to go with Jorge Villafana. And I think that Villafana, wouldn't have played the way he normally does, overlapping our outside midfielders and whatnot. But if he could play a more conservative approach and just not use his pace to not get burned on the counterattack, I think that looks better than DeMarcus Beasley. I know Beasley was okay at certain times, but I think Elise also made a fool of him at others. Beasler, he was all right. I thought probably he was the best of our starting defenders. He didn't really do much that was impressive besides his role in the goal. But distribution-wise, he was solid at certain points. Did occasionally have his defensive lapses. But overall, I think that, when he was marking Lozano, he did a decent job. Definitely better than when Gonzalez was doing 1v1 marking. And Gonzalez was pretty trash in this game, to put it quite bluntly. I know that Gonzalez is capable of having better games than this. And I think that Gonzalez, actually in the second half of this game, did decently to stop some counterattacks. Maybe he, wanted to redeem himself. But that goal, inexcusable. I don't know. He is in a position to make the ball there. Whether it's, getting the right angle or being fast enough, he's definitely has the ability to get to that ball. And there were other times where he got beaten as well. And like in the 59th minute against Lozano, I remember that one pretty clearly. I don't think that this is good defending, and I don't see how it's going to fare against the better opposition in CONCACAF, let alone in the World Cup. So I don't. Again, our starting center back pairing is going to be Jeff Cameron and John Brooks, and Jeff Cameron didn't. We all know that what happened with Jeff Cameron against Costa Rica was an anomaly. So I think you'll have to, look at that and when you're panicking about our center backs and our defense, look, that would be our pairing. And Jeff Cameron's still a great defender, which I thought he showed when he got subbed on in this game in the second half. And Brooks Cameron will be a good pairing. Now, I still don't feel comfortable with some of our backup center backs. I know Beasler had a decent game, at least decent compared to Omar Gonzalez, and I think that he's capable of having, very solid games, but I also think that he's capable of having bad games. So while I've heard all about our center back depth on the national team, I don't think we have depth at center back as well as people say, because I think the drop off from our starters to our backups is quite huge, and I really don't feel comfortable going to the World Cup with another center back besides Jeff Cameron or John Brooks. I think that people get caught up in the depth thing because our fullback depth is putrid. Our center back depth is definitely better than our fullbacks, but still doesn't make it that good anyway, at least in my eyes. So yeah, those were my thoughts on those players. I thought when Jeff Cameron came on in the second half, his distribution was really nice. In the 84th minute, kind of the passage of play that led to Bobby Wood's goal was started from Jeff Cameron playing a long ball to Areola, who Areola was very good, by the way, too. I'll get back to that. But yeah, so Cameron definitely did a good job. in that back three there, but I don't necessarily think that a back three is necessary, especially when we're at full strength. But, I mean, I understand why he went with it, but I would have just started Jeff Cameron. And I do think we did look better in the second half. And, you know, we saw how the back three fared at Mexico. So I understand Bruce Arena's rationale, but I think we just wasted a half by not starting Jeff Cameron and not playing a back three. You know, so, yeah. But, I mean, moving up to the midfield, I think that Bradley and Acosta did little to nothing in this game. I got pretty encouraged because Acosta made some decent plays defensively in the beginning, and he was showing a bit more energy, but that started to fade off really quickly. I think that Bradley and Acosta should have won the midfield battle, but I think what this has taught me, if anything, is that maybe I'm wrong, and maybe that we just have to play a three-man midfield against every team. Because if we can't retain possession in the midfield, if Bradley and Acosta can't hold it down, then there's not going to be another two-man midfield that really will. So barring like the end of games, like, or situational, you know, kinds of choices, I don't think that a 4-4-2, a flat 4-4-2, or a two-man midfield formation is good for us. I've said it before, I'll say it again, a 4-3-3 attack is what I want to play. And we saw it from Honduras, and that's kind of how they burned us. I mean, they had Elise on the left, Kyoto on the right. I know they switch sides sometimes, but mainly Elise was on the right and Kyoto was on the left. And, other way around. Wait, no. Elise on the right and Kyoto on the left. Sorry, it got really confusing. But mostly, I think you saw Elise burning Beasley on that right-hand side. But that formation that they had with Lozano up top and then Lopez underneath that front three provided for some pretty threatening counterattacks. I mean, you saw some good shots by Lopez. You saw Lozano attract certain center backs, allow the wingers to get more involved in the play. And I really think that if this can work for this team that's using two Houston Dynamo players, it can work for our team. So I don't understand the complacency to not use this formation, and I really think it would work, especially against this opposition. So, anyways, though, enough with that tangent. Our outside midfielders were Nagbe and Pulisic. Nagbe, I remember in the 14th minute, he beat like three defenders on the left-hand side, and he was doing pretty well at the beginning. Then he started to disappear, as with a lot of other players, and he didn't really contribute at all in the second half either. And that's why he got subbed off in the 73rd minute for Bobby Wood, who did make a little bit more of an impact. Christian Pulisic, fighting all game, you know, beating people all game, but his end product was, dare I say, Areola-esque. I didn't understand this. I'm disappointed because I know what Christian Pulisic can do. I know that Christian Pulisic can beat defenders. I know that Christian Pulisic can draw fouls near the box. But where was the cross? Where was that pass? It's not even, you know, it's not I don't think it's a Pulisic thing. I think it was just a rough night because, or maybe, you know, too much pressure is kind of getting to him with these intense World Cup qualifier games. Because we know that Pulisic is talented enough to do this. I mean, you can't have, you know, bad end product for Dortmund. You see him week in and week out. He doesn't. So, I was not enthused with that aspect of Pulisic's game, but obviously I'm impressed. Or not impressed. I'm glad that he was able to keep on fighting throughout the game, keep on sprinting at full speed going forward, keep on trying to create attacking opportunities. But oftentimes I feel like he did a lot, and sometimes he gave up, or not gave up, but failed to do the easiest part. So, Christian Pulisic, part of it, though, is that I want to see him in a playmaker role. It's hard to be the center of attention, but not play in the center. So I think that Christian Pulisic, it would suit him perfectly. for Dortmund, I understand him playing out wide. It makes total sense. They have other threats. They have other players that can create. For the U.S., we need kind of a focal point to connect, help switch the field, connect the midfield to the attack. He can do so much in that role, and I feel like we're wasting him right now, Bruce Arena is. So, but I don't want to beat a dead horse on that one. And then up top, we had Clint Dempsey and Jordan Morris, both of which created maybe a couple chances, but and Dempsey did a good job drawing yellow cards in the first half, but I was not really warned of their presence much because they seemed invisible. Jordan Morris did make a few good runs to hold up the ball. He did make some decent efforts, but in the 55th minute, he did really well to run all the way upfield and win the ball from Honduras, but the pass was just to the other. The pass was right at the opposition, and yeah. So not great performances by either of them, I don't think. But of course, Morris, definitely good to flick on for that goal. Just having the awareness of knowing where Bobby Wood is or what vicinity Bobby Wood is in, and using that technical skill to just flick it on and let Bobby Wood have a touch and score. So good work by him there. I think Morris has a place, but I think that Bobby Wood maybe should have started in this game, because as much as I wanted to see Bobby Wood as a lone striker in this game, he wasn't. Or we didn't play a formation that allowed that, but I still would rather see him play than not play. And I just think that he's a better version of Jordan Morris in a lot of ways. And I think that Jordan Morris definitely has time to develop, still very young. But Bobby Wood right now is a player that's in the Bundesliga. He's proven. He's, scores a decent amount of goals on a team that doesn't help him that much, Hamburg, and I would have liked to see him start, and, who knows, maybe he could have done more damage than just score one goal, because in 17 minutes he got a goal. So basically, the more I look at this, the more I just didn't like the starting lineup, but that formation switch to the three in the back, which, it looked to be a 3-5-2 or some variation of that. It was really confusing. I think towards the end, no one even understood their roles to a certain point. I had no idea where Jordan Morris was late in the game. It was very strange. And I could break down kind of the specifics of what I saw, but I really don't. Everything's kind of convoluted from a formation standpoint of that second half to me. So I don't like what I saw, though, because, from a three in the back aspect, I think, the three in the back did help us defensively, but a lot of that was Jeff Cameron coming on, I thought, and Beasley was off and Zuzi was off, and those were the people getting burned, and Areola, actually, a substitute, did a really good job of not only helping with the attack, but also helping with the defense, playing that winged back role, which I guess he was playing, or that outside midfield role that's a little bit more defensive because of the formation. So Areola, definitely impressed me in this game. His passes in the final third were definitely better than I usually give him credit for. So, I thought he was probably the best substitute, even though Bobby Wood scored the goal, because Areola was involved in the build-up to get that free kick. But all three substitutes were actually pretty effective. Jeff Cameron helping to play balls at the back. Rock solid in defense, Areola helping to create, also helping on defense, then Bobby Wood scoring that final goal. But not really getting that many chances outside of that. But I think part of that had to do with Honduras packing it in a little more. I think that if Bobby Wood started off this game, he could have gotten a few quick opportunities. Not to say that Jordan Morris didn't, because Jordan Morris did have that shot at the beginning. So I do think that Bruce Arena is going to need to reevaluate what he's doing with this lineup. I do think that Jeff Cameron shouldn't be benched, really, no matter how bad he plays. And this formation, this flat 4-4-2, doesn't give us with anything. Look at what Honduras is doing. they're using players who are less talented than some of our outside midfielders. I truly believe that Nagby and Fabian Johnson on the wings are, better than Elise and Kyoto. And then everything else is comparable too. You have Pulisic, who's, would outperform Lopez, and then Lozano versus Bobby Wood or Josie Altidore. Then, you're looking at a very strong side. And I think that Bruce Arena has to be confident enough to try that. Now, I know we normally don't see that 4-3-3 with a playmaker, but I think that we're good enough to do it. I think that Acosta and Bradley both have the defensive talent to make up for not having a number 6. So I really want Bruce Arena to do that, but in the end, I don't want to get too over the top. Like, Bruce Arena has still only lost one game coaching the USMNT, and that was to coach a talented Costa Rica team. But I can still get mad a little bit about the approaches that went into this game. But I still feel comfortable with Bruce Arena commanding the troops ahead of the World Cup and everything. And no part of me thinks that we're not going to qualify for this competition. I think that as a U.S. fan, I've been through this a couple times, and Landon Donovan even tweeted it. By the way, he was a guest on the podcast in episode number 60, so go check that out. But Landon Donovan tweeted, "It's going to be ugly sometimes. No one has a perfect campaign, and you're going to see some things that you don't want to see, but you just gotta understand that the main goal, really the only thing that matters, is that World Cup. So if we can get through, and then, if we can get through, find an identity, or at least part of an identity, with hopefully our full strength lineup next time with Jeff Cameron and John Brooks in the back line and Yedlin also in the back line, then I'm okay if we finished third and got into the World Cup. Now, as I say this, I am a little bit skeptical of playoffs. So I know that if we finished fourth, we would have to play one of the last teams in the Asian qualifying that managed to get in. So, their playoff spot too, obviously, since it's a playoff against each other. And those do worry me. Playoff games just always worry me in soccer. I think that I've experienced it with Roma getting knocked out by, I think, a less talented Porto team ahead of the 2016-2017 Champions League. And I don't like that much, but I really do think that we'll finish third, ahead of Honduras and Panama and Trinidad and Tobago, and we'll get into the World Cup comfortably. But I do understand the concern, like, if we would finish fourth, like why that's not automatic entry and why stuff can go wrong in those. So let's get the job done. Let's do what we need to do in these next pair of qualifiers, against Panama and Trinidad, I believe. And I think we can do this, so no one panic. I'm getting a little bit disheartened as I'm saying don't panic, because I'm just not yeah. But a couple other things that I want to talk about this game, other than our play, was the field was pretty awful, and there's really no excuse, but it might have affected the final ball in some situations that I'm talking about with Pulisic, but still, no excuse. They played on the same field, and I didn't think the ref was really as bad as the one against Costa Rica, which I feel bad for not mentioning, because I realized right after I stopped recording for the episode against Costa Rica that the ref was just terrible. And that was really terrible to watch. I think we got screwed over many times in the first half of that Costa Rica game, but the ref wasn't that bad in this game. He wasn't the best. He had to stop play because he was cramping in the beginning of the second half. But compared to CONCACAF refs, it could be worse. A lot of thoughts in my head going on about the U.S. men's national team, a lot of different ideas, but I think overall we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. I'm excited to get back into the club season. This first international break is always my least favorite because it happens to 2 to 3 weeks in of all these major European leagues, and it's just why do they even start if we're just going to come in with an international break? Like in Serie A and I think the Bundesliga, they've only played 2 games, so why. Like, I just don't like that scheduling. I mean, I'm sure there's a better reason for it. I don't work for FIFA, but I'm excited to get back into the rotation. I will have an episode this weekend, or maybe on Monday, covering some of the games that happened in Europe and maybe some of MLS too, maybe some Americans abroad performances. That's something that I want to start including on this podcast a little bit more. We have an email for this podcast, SoccerBrothersPodcast@gmail.com. We also have a Twitter. That's at SoccerBrosPod. The Instagram is under the same handle. We're on Facebook. You can listen to us on Google Play, SoundCloud, or iTunes. Definitely. So if you're like on Twitter and you found this, go to subscribe to us on a platform that's more accessible, that's a little bit easier to listen to and download to your phone, like iTunes or Google Play. Thank you so much for the support. I'm really happy to keep on doing this, even without Nihal. It was a little bit more fun with Nihal, I know, and it provided a couple different viewpoints, which I think is more interesting as a listener. But he'll be back on the podcast in a few months, and I'm really excited to have him back. But in the meantime, I'm enjoying this, and I'm excited to keep on providing content throughout the club season. So thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you guys next time on episode 81 of the Soccer Brothers Podcast. Thank you so much.